What's up, everyone, and welcome to this week's Cybersecurity Weekly, where we review the security events that happened in the last week. As always, I've broken the stories down in the timeline, and there is a list of stories with time markers in the description below. So you can click on any of those time markers to jump around to any story you want. If you find my work valuable, of course, I ask you to hit the like button and share this episode with anyone you know who can benefit from this extremely valuable information. If you have not already, please also consider subscribing to my channel.
Oh, drat these computers. They're so naughty and so complex. I could pinch them.
We start off today with patches. Google has fixed a critical vulnerability tracked to CVE 2022-20345 that affects the Android system component. The IT giant has fixed the flaw with the release of Android 12 and 12L updates. Google did not disclose additional details about the vulnerability. The most severe vulnerability in this section could lead to remote code execution over Bluetooth with no additional execution privileges needed, reads the security bulletin published by Google. Google addressed the issue with the release of the security patches 2022-08-01 and 2022-08-05. The CVE 2022-20345 flaw is the only issue rated as critical fixed by Google this month. All the remaining vulnerabilities have been rated as high severity, which, I mean, come on, it's still pretty bad, right? The flaws impact Framework, Media Framework System, Kernel, Imagination Technologies, MediaTek, Unisoc, and Qualcomm components. Google also patched tens of security vulnerabilities. That always gets me, tens of security vulnerabilities in Google Pixel devices, including 4 critical remote code execution flaws tracked as CVE 2022-20237, CVE 2022-20400, CVE 2022-20402, and CVE 2022-20403. VMware has addressed a critical authentication bypass security flaw tracked to CVE 2022-31656, impacting local domain users in multiple products. An unauthenticated attacker can exploit the vulnerability to gain admin privileges. A malicious actor with network access to the UI may be able to obtain administrative access without the need to authenticate, reads the advisory published by the virtualization giant. The flaw impacts Workspace ONE Access, Identity Manager, and vRealize Automation products. These vulnerabilities are authentication bypass, remote code execution, and privilege escalation vulnerabilities, reads a post published by the company. An authentication bypass means that an attacker with network access to Workspace ONE Access or VMware Identity Manager and vRealize Automation can obtain administrative access. Remote code execution means that an attacker can trick the components into executing commands that aren't authorized. Privilege escalation means that an attacker with local access can become root on the virtual appliance. It is extremely important that you quickly take steps to patch or mitigate these issues in on-premise deployments. Cisco addressed a critical security vulnerability tracked to CVE 2022-20842, impacting small business VPN routers. The flaw resides in the web-based management interface of several small business VPN routers, including Cisco RV340, RV340W, RV345, RV345P dual WAN gigabit VPN routers. An unauthenticated remote attacker can exploit the flaw to execute arbitrary code or trigger a denial of service condition by causing an affected device to restart unexpectedly. This vulnerability is due to insufficient validation of user-supplied input to the web-based management interface. An attacker could exploit this vulnerability by sending crafted HTTP input to an affected device. A successful exploit could allow the attacker to execute arbitrary code as the root user on the underlying operating system or cause the device to reload, resulting in a DOS condition, reads the advisory published by the company. The flaw received a CVSS score of 9.8. The IT giant pointed out that there are no workarounds that address this vulnerability, so of course you need to patch, and update. Cisco also fixed a vulnerability tracked to CVE 2022-20827 in the web filter database update feature of Cisco Small Business that could allow an unauthenticated remote attacker to perform a command injection and execute commands on the underlying operating system with root privileges. The issue affects RV160, RV260, RV340, and RV345 series routers. It received a CVSS score of 9.0. This vulnerability is due to insufficient, again, input validation. An attacker could exploit this vulnerability by submitting crafted input to the web filter database update feature. A successful exploit could allow the attacker to execute commands on the underlying operating system with root privileges. Cisco has fixed critical security vulnerabilities affecting small business VPN routers and enabling unauthenticated remote attackers to execute arbitrary code or commands and trigger denial of service conditions on vulnerable devices. The third issue addressed by Cisco is a command injection vulnerability tracked to CVE 2022-20841 in the Open Plug and Play module of Cisco Small Business RV160, RV260, RV340, and RV345 series routers. We now move on to attacks, vulnerabilities, and updates. Researchers from FortiGuard Labs have discovered a new IoT botnet tracked as RapperBot, which is active since mid-June 2022. The bot borrows a large portion of its code from the original Mirai botnet, which we've heard about numerous times. But unlike other IoT malware families, it implements a built-in capability to brute force credentials and gain access to SSH servers instead of Telnet as implemented in Mirai. Experts also noticed that the most recent samples include the code to maintain persistence, which is rarely implemented in other Mirai variants. RapperBot has limited DDoS capabilities. It was designed to target ARM, MIPS, Spark, and x86 architectures. Earlier samples of the malware had the brute force credential list hard-coded into the binary, but from July, the sample started retrieving the list from the command and control server. Since mid-July, RapperBot started using self-propagation for maintaining remote access into the brute force SSH servers. The bot runs a shell command to replace remote victims' SSH authorized keys with one containing the threat actor's SSH public key with the comment "Hello World." RapperBot is also able to retain its foothold on any devices on which it is executed by appending the same aforementioned SSH key to the local authorized keys on the infected device upon execution. This allows the malware to maintain its access to these infected devices via SSH even after a device reboot or the removal of RapperBot from the device. In the latest RapperBot samples, the malware also started adding the root user SU helper to the infected device by directly writing to the etc password and etc shadow, further allowing the threat actor to take complete control of the device. Continues to report. In conjunction, it adds the root user account every hour by writing the following script to etc cron.hourly/0 in the event that other users or botnets attempt to remove their account from the victim system. Early versions of the bot had strings in plaintext. Subsequent ones added extra obfuscation to the strings by building them on the stack to avoid detection. Since mid-June, the botnet used over 3,500 unique IPs worldwide to scan and attempt brute forcing Linux SSH servers with the SSH 2.0 Hello World client identification string. Most of the IPs are from the US, Taiwan, and South Korea. Experts pointed out that the goal of RapperBot is still unclear. Malwarebytes researchers observed an unknown threat actor targeting Russian organizations with a new remote access Trojan called WoodyRat. The attackers were delivering the malware using archive files and Microsoft Office documents, exploiting the Folina Windows flaw CVE 2022-30190. Remember that. The assumption that attackers focus on Russian entities is based on a fake domain they registered. Malwarebytes is aware that they tried to target a Russian aerospace and defense entity known as Oak. The earliest versions of this rat was typically archived into a zip file pretending to be a document specific to a Russian group. When the Folina vulnerability became known to the world, the threat actor switched to it to distribute the payload as identified by one malware hunter team, states the report published by Malwarebytes. Any attacks leveraging the archive files, the archives are sent to victims via spear phishing emails. Attacks exploiting the Windows Folina flaw were spotted on June 7, 2022, when researchers observed threat actors using a weaponized Microsoft Office document titled whatever.docs. The Lure document, called Information Security Memo, provides security practices for passwords, confidential information, etc. To evade network-based monitoring, the WoodyRat malware uses a combination of RSA 4096 and AES-CBC to encrypt the data sent to the command and control server. The rat is equipped with multiple backdoor capabilities, such as writing arbitrary files to the machine, executing additional malware, capturing screenshots, enumerating dictionaries, deleting files, and gathering a list of running processes. The analysis of the malicious code revealed that the malware has two .NET DLLs embedded inside named Woody Sharp Executor and Woody Power Session, respectively. Woody Sharp Executor allows the malware to run .NET code received from the command and control server, while Woody Power Session allows the malware to execute PowerShell commands and scripts received from the command and control server. In order to steal Facebook session cookies from the victims, the malware scans the machine for popular browsers, including Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, Brave browser, and Firefox. For each of the browsers that it finds, it extracts all the stored cookies, including any Facebook session cookie. The malware also steals information from the victim's personal Facebook account, including name, email address, date of birth, and user ID, along with other data such as two-factor authentication codes, user agents, IP addresses, and geolocation. With Secure cannot determine the success or lack thereof that the threat actor has had in circumventing Facebook's existing security features and hijacking businesses, concludes the report. However, the threat actor has continued to update and push out the malware in an attempt to improve its ability to bypass existing new Facebook security features alongside other implemented features. Major Taiwan government websites were temporarily forced offline by distributed denial of service or DDoS attacks during the visit to Taipei of U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. The cyber attacks forced offline the government English portal, some websites of the Presidential Office, Foreign Ministry, and Defense Ministry. Experts believe that the attack was coordinated by China-linked threat actors as retaliation for the visit of Pelosi. Taiwan's Foreign Ministry stated that the attacks were originated from Chinese and Russian IP addresses. The malicious traffic peaked at up to 8.5 million times per minute. As cyber attacks from foreign hostile forces could still occur at any time, the Foreign Ministry will continue to remain vigilant, spokeswoman Joanna told to reporters. The Presidential Office said it would up its monitoring in the face of hybrid information warfare by external forces. In August 2020, Chinese hackers gained access to around 6,000 email accounts belonging to at least 10 Taiwan government agencies, officials said. In November 2021, Taiwanese government representatives revealed that around 5 million cyber attacks hit Taiwan's government agencies every day, and most of the hacking attempts originated from China. Cybersecurity Department Director Chin Hung Wei told parliament representatives that government infrastructure faces 5 million attacks and scans a day. We're strengthening the government's defensive measures and collecting relevant data for analysis in a bid to stop the attacks when they are initiated, Chen told lawmakers. Taiwan's defense ministry warned of an increase in the attacks carried out by China-linked actors against the system. So an increase from 5 million a day? That's crazy. In February 2022, China-linked app group Apt10, aka Stone Panda or Bronze Riverside, targeted Taiwan's financial trading sector with a supply chain attack. The campaign was launched by the Apt10 group in November 2021, but it hit a peak between February 10th and 13th, 2022, Taiwanese cybersecurity firm Cycraft reported. The group, also known as Cicada, Stone Panda, MenuPass Group, Bronze Riverside, and Cloud Hopper, has been active at least since 2009. In April 2017, experts from PwC UK and BAE Systems uncovered a widespread hacking campaign tracked as Operation Cloud Hopper, targeting managed service providers, or MSPs, in multiple countries worldwide. In November 2020, researchers uncovered a large-scale campaign conducted by China-linked Apt10 targeting businesses using recently disclosed zero-logon vulnerability. According to Cycraft, nation-state attackers compromised the supply chain of software systems of financial institutions as part of a campaign codenamed Operation Cash Panda. The attack caused abnormal cases of placing orders. The attackers exploited a vulnerability in the web management interface of an unnamed security software firm in Taiwan and deployed a web shell to deliver the Khazar rat on the target system. Semikron is a German-based independent manufacturer of power semiconductor components. It employs more than 3,000 people in 24 subsidiaries worldwide with production sites in Germany, Brazil, China, France, India, Italy, Slovakia, and the United States. The Semikron group has become a victim fallen victim of a cyber attack by a professional hacker group. As part of this attack, the perpetrators have claimed to have exfiltrated data from our system. Whether this is the case and which data are concerned is currently subject to investigation, reads a data breach notice published by the company. The attackers have infiltrated data from the company's systems before encrypting a portion of the internal network. The company is investigating the security breach with the help of external cybersecurity and forensic experts. According to Semikron, the hackers claim to have stolen data from its systems, which the company is currently working to confirm. No additional information has been shared by the company about the attack. Talos researchers observed a Chinese threat actor using a new offensive framework called Manjusaka, which can be translated to cow flour, from the simplified Chinese writing that is similar to Sliver and Cobalt Strike tools. The attack framework is advertised as an imitation of the Cobalt Strike framework. The experts reported that the implants for the new malware family are written in the Rust language for Windows and Linux. The experts uncovered a campaign using lure documents themed around COVID-19 and the Haixi, Mongol, and Tibetan Autonomous Prefecture, Qinghai province. I really need to learn Chinese, right? The weaponized documents were crafted to start the infection process and led to the installation of Cobalt Strike beacons on infected systems. A fully functional version of the command and control server written in Golang with a user interface in simplified Chinese is freely available and can generate new implants with custom configurations with ease, increasing the likelihood of wider adoption of this framework by malicious actors. Like I said, I got to learn Chinese. This is freely available. Reads the analysis published by Cisco Talos. We have observed the same threat actor using the Cobalt Strike beacon and implants from the Manjusaka framework. The researcher states that malware implant is a rat family called Manjusaka, while the command and control is an ELF binary written in Golang available on GitHub. Ooh, on GitHub. The command and control server and admin panel are built in the Jin Web framework, which allows operators to issue commands to the Rust-based implants stagers. The implants support multiple capabilities, including executing arbitrary commands on the infected systems. The attribution of this campaign to Chinese threat actors is based on the following evidence. The maldoc refers to a COVID-19 outbreak in Golmud City. The Rust-based implant does not use the standard crates.eio library repository for dependency resolving. Instead, it was manually configured by the developers to use a mirror located at the University of Science and Technology of China. The command and control menus and options are all written in simplified Chinese. The OSINT suggests that the author of this framework is located in the Guangdong region of China. The ALPHV BlackCat ransomware gang claims to have hacked the European gas pipeline Creos LuxemboAurg S.A. Creos LuxemboAurg owns and manages electricity networks and natural gas pipelines in the Grand Duchy or Duchy? The Grand Duchy of Luxembourg. In this capacity, the company plans, constructs, and maintains high, medium, and low voltage electricity networks and high, medium, and low pressure natural gas pipelines, which it owns or which it is responsible for managing. The ALPHV BlackCat ransomware group claims to have stolen more than 150 gigabytes from the company, a total of 180,000 files. Stolen data includes contracts, agreements, passports, bills, and emails. The company Ensevo, which owns the majority of Creos, published a security advisory to announce that the gas pipeline firm has suffered a cyber attack that took place between July 22nd and 23rd. Ensevo registered a complaint with the police of the Grand Duchy and, of course, notified the CNPD, National Commission of Data Protection, the ILR, Luxembourg Institute of Regulation, and the competent ministries. The Ensevo Group would like to inform that its Luxembourg entities Creos network operator and Enovos energy supplier were victims of a cyber attack on the night of July 22nd to 23rd, 2022. The Ensevo Group crisis unit was triggered immediately, and the situation is currently under control. We are in the process of gathering all the elements necessary for the understanding and complete resolution of the incident, reads the announcement. However, this attack has a negative impact on the operation of the Creos and Enovos customer portals. Creos and Enovos pointed out that the cyber attack did not impact the supply of electricity and gas, and that the breakdown service is guaranteed. On July 28th, Ensevo Group published a new announcement confirming the threat actors had exfiltrated data from its systems. Following the announcements of Monday, July 25th, and in accordance with our legal information obligations, we confirm that the various entities of the Ensevo Group have been the victim of, or have fallen victim of a cyber attack. During this attack, a number of data were exfiltrated from computer systems or made inaccessible by hackers. The CVE 2022-30563 vulnerability impacting Dahua IP camera, see I can say that one, Dahua IP camera, can allow attackers to seize control of IP cameras. The issue affects Dahua's implementation of the Open Network Video Interface Forum. ONVIF provides and promotes standardized interfaces for effective interoperability of IP-based physical security products. We're publishing the details of a new vulnerability tracked under CVE 2022-30563 affecting the implementation of the Open Network Video Interface Forum, WS username token authentication mechanism, in some IP cameras developed by Dahua, a very popular manufacturer of IP-based surveillance solutions, reads the advisory published by Nozomi Networks. This vulnerability could be abused by attackers to compromise network cameras by sniffing a previous unencrypted ONVIF interaction and replaying the credentials in a new request towards the camera. ONVIF conformant products allow users to perform a variety of actions on the remote device through a set of standardized application programming interfaces or APIs, including watching camera footage, looking or locking or unlocking a smart door, ooh, that's dangerous, and performing maintenance operations. The flaw resides in the WS username token authentication mechanism implemented by Dahua in some of its IP cameras. Due to the lack of checks to prevent reply attacks, a threat actor can sniff and unencrypted ONVIF interaction and indefinitely replay the credentials in new requests towards the camera, which would be accepted as valid authentication requests by the device. Once the credentials are obtained, an attacker can add an administrator account and use it to obtain full access to the device and perform actions such as watching live footage from the camera. Voyez. An attacker can conduct this attack by capturing one unencrypted ONVIF request authenticated with the WS username token schema. The following versions of Dahua video products are affected. You ready? Dahua ASI7XXX versions prior to 1.000, but whatever that number is. Dahua IPC HDB W2X, whatever versions prior to whatever that is. And Dahua IPC HX2XXX versions prior to blah, blah, blah. The Federal Communications Commission issued an alert to warn Americans of the rising threat of smishing, attacks aimed at stealing their personal information over financial scams. The FEC's robocall response team is alerting consumers to the rising threat of robotexts. Substantial increases in consumer complaints to the FCC reports by non-government robocall and robotext blocking services, and anecdotal and news reporting make it clear that text messages are increasingly being used by scammers to target American consumers, reads the alert published by the FCC. Threat actors use multiple lures to trick victims into providing their information or sending them money. SMS used by the attackers include false but believable claims about unpaid bills, package delivery snafus, bank account problems, or law enforcement actions against the victims. In some cases, the information collected as part of these smishing attacks may be used in future scams. The alert recommends Americans don't respond or click on any links in the message. I've said that I don't know how long. It's a long time. An alert is based on the increased number of consumer complaints about unwanted text messages. In recent years, it raised from approximately 5,700 in 2019 to 14,000 in 2020 to 15,300 in 2021 to 8,500 through June 30th, 2022. In addition, some independent reports estimate billions of robotexts each month. For example, RoboKiller estimates consumers received over 12 billion robotexts in June alone. 12 billion in June. If you think you're the victim of a texting scam, report it immediately to your local law enforcement agency and notify your wireless service provider and financial institutions where you have accounts, states the FCC. For more information about scam calls and text, visit the FCC Consumer Help Center and the FCC Scam. MBDA is a European multinational developer and manufacturer of missiles that was the result of the merger of the main French, British, and Italian missile systems companies, Aerospatiale Matra BAE Systems and Finmeccanica, now Leonardo. The name MBDA comes from the initialism of the names missile companies, Matra, BAE, Dynamics, and Alenia. A threat actor that goes online with the moniker Adrastea and that defines itself as a group of independent cybersecurity specialists and researchers claims to have hacked MBDA, a missiles company. Adrastea said that they have found critical vulnerabilities in the company infrastructure and have stolen 60 gigabytes of confidential data. The attacker said that the stolen data includes information about the employees of the company involved in military projects, commercial activities, contract agreements, and correspondence with other companies. As proof of the hack, Adrastea shared a link to a password-protected linked archive containing internal documents related to projects and correspondence. At this time, it's not clear if the threat actors have breached only one of the national divisions of the company. They did not disclose details about the attack. MBDA published the following press release confirming that its systems were not hacked. The origin of the data has already been ascertained as they were acquired from an external hard drive. It has been confirmed that there has been no violation and or compromise of the corporate networks. At present, the company's internal verification processes indicate that the data that has been made available online are neither classified nor sensitive. Trend Micro researchers uncovered a malicious campaign that leveraged 17 seemingly harmless Android dropper apps, collectively tracked as DawDropper, on the Google Play Store to distribute banking malware. Ooh. The DawDropper apps are masqueraded as productivity and utility apps such as document scanners, VPN services, QR code readers, and call recorders. All these apps in questions have been removed from the app marketplace. In the latter part of 2021, we found a malicious campaign that uses a new dropper variant that we have dubbed as DawDropper. Under the guise of several Android apps such as Just In, Video Motion, Document Scanner Pro, Conquer Darkness, Simply Cleaner, and Unique QR Scanner, DawDropper uses Firebase Real-Time Database, a third-party cloud service, to evade detection and dynamically obtain a payload download address, reads the report published by Trend Micro. It also hosts malicious payloads on GitHub. As of reporting, these malicious apps are no longer available on Google Play Store. DawDropper apps were spotted dropping 4 families of banking Trojans, including Okta, Hydra, Ermac, and T-Bot. All of them were use a Firebase real-time database, a legitimate cloud-hosted NoSQL database for storing data as a command and control server, and host malicious payloads on GitHub. TrendMicro also found another dropper tracked as Class82, which was uncovered by Checkpoint Research in March 2021. Both DawDropper and Class82 use Firebase real-time databases as command and control servers. The researchers pointed out that the banking droppers implement their own distribution and installation technique. The experts have observed the banking droppers that were launched earlier this year have hard-coded payload download addresses. Meanwhile, the banking droppers that have been recently launched are designed to hide the actual payload download address, at times use third-party services as their command and control service, and use third-party services such as GitHub to host malicious payload. Below is a list of malicious DawDropper apps that were found in the Play Store. Call Recorder, Rooster VPN, Super Cleaner, Hyper and Smart, Document Scanner, Universal Save Pro, Eager Photo Editor, Call Recorder Pro, Extra Cleaner, Crypto Utils, Fixed Cleaner, Just In Video Motion, com.myunique sequence store, com.flow mysql2.yammer, com.k's Universal Saver, Lucky Cleaner, Simply Cleaner, Unique QR Scanner. North Korea-linked actor SharpTongue has been using a malicious extension on Chromium-based web browsers to spy on victims' Gmail and AOL email accounts. Researchers from cybersecurity firm Velexity tracked the threat actor as SharpTongue, but its operation overlaps with one of the Kimsuki app group. The SharpTongue's toolset was detailed in a report published by Huntress in 2021. However, in September 2022, Velexity began observing the use of a previously undocumented malware family. In the last 12 months, Velexity has responded to multiple security incidents involving SharpTongue, and in most cases, threat actors used a malicious Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge extension tracked as SharpXt. Unlike other extensions used by the Kimsuki app group, SharpXt or extension does not try to steal usernames and passwords. Rather, it accesses the victim's webmail account as they browse it. The current version of the extension supports 3 web browsers and is able to steal the content of emails from both Gmail and AOL webmail. Sharp extension is a malicious browser extension deployed by SharpTongue following successful compromise of a target system. In the first versions of Sharp extension investigated by Velexity, the malware only supported Google Chrome, reads the analysis published by the experts. The latest version, 3.0, based on the internal versioning, supports 3 browsers, Chrome, Edge, and Whale, used by South Korean users. The attack chain starts with attackers manually exfiltrating files required to install the extension from the infected workstation. Once a target Windows system is breached, the attackers replace the browser's preferences and secure preferences. Then attackers manually install Sharp extension using a VBS script. Threat actors enable the DevTools panel with the active tab to spy on the email content and steal attachments from a victim's mailbox. This action is done using a PowerShell script named dev.ps1. The attackers also hide warning messages running developer mode extensions. When Velexity first encountered Sharp extension, it seemed to be a tool in early development containing numerous bugs and indication the tool was immature. The latest updates and ongoing maintenance demonstrate the attacker is achieving its goals, finding value, and continuing to refine it, continues the report. Velexity's own visibility shows the extension has been quite successful, as logs obtained from Velexity show the attacker was able to successfully steal thousands of emails from multiple victims through the malware's deployment. Experts pointed out that this is the first time the threat actor used malicious browser extensions as part of the post-exploitation phase. Stealing email data from the user's already logged-in session makes this attack stealthy and hard to be detected by email providers. Cybersecurity firm Deepwatch reported that a threat actor tracked as TAC040 has likely exploited the CVE 2022-26134 flaw in Atlassian Confluence servers to deploy a previously undetected backdoor dubbed Ljl Backdoor. The attackers exploited the flaw in an attack against an unnamed organization in the research and technical services sector. The attack took place in May and lasted 7 days. The analysis of the network log suggests TAC040 exfiltrated around 700 megabytes of data from the victim system. ATI's thorough analysis determined that the attack occurred during the end of May over a 7-day period. TAC040 highly likely exploited a vulnerability in an Atlassian Confluence server. The evidence indicates that the threat actor executed malicious commands with a parent process of tomcat9.exe in Atlassian's Confluence directory, reads the analysis published by Deepwatch. Experts also speculated attackers could have alternatively exploited the Spring4 shell vulnerability, CVE 2022-22965, to gain initial access to the Confluence web application. After the initial compromise, the attackers ran multiple commands to enumerate the local system, network, and Active Directory environment. the threat actor likely utilized a memory-based web shell or opted to run commands directly through the exploit, as no dropper commands or forensic records of an on-disk web shell were recovered. Several open-source reports detail similar defense detection avoidance techniques concerning the exploitation of CVE 2022-26134, but technical details on these techniques are sparse. At this time, it's unclear who is behind the TAC-040. Experts only speculate that it operates a to-gather intelligence, despite the discovery of XM Rig crypto miner on the system suggests it could be financially motivated. The Monero address managed by the group threat actors has netted at least 652 XMR, more than $100,000. Tens of routers models from Taiwanese Soho manufacturer DrayTek are affected by a critical unauthenticated remote code execution vulnerability tracked as CVE 2022-32548 that can be exploited to fully compromise a vulnerable device and gain unauthorized access to the broader network. Researchers from Trellix discovered the vulnerability. The attack can be performed without user interaction if the management interface of the device has been exposed online. For this reason, it has been rated with CVS a score of 10 out of 10. The attack can be performed without user interaction if the management interface of the device has been configured to be internet-facing. A one-click attack can also be performed from within the LAN in the default device configuration, reads the advisory published by Trellix. The attack can lead to a full compromise of the device and may lead to a network breach and unauthorized access to internal resources. All the affected models have a patched firmware available for download on the vendor's website. The researchers discovered a buffer overflow on the login page at /CGI bin wlogin.cgi of the web management interface. An attacker can trigger the flaw by supplying carefully crafted username and or password as base64 encoded strings inside the fields AA and AB of the login page. The root cause of the problem is the lack of size verification of these encoded strings. By default, this attack is reachable on the LAN and may be reachable via the internet as well if the user has enabled remote web management on their device. The consequence of this attack is a takeover of the so-called DrayOS that implements the router functionalities, continues the analysis. On devices that have an underlying Linux operating system, such as the Vigor 3910, it is then possible to pivot to the underlying operating system and establish a reliable foothold on the device and local network. Devices that are running the DrayOS as a bare metal operating system will be harder to compromise, as it requires that the attacker has better understanding of the DrayOS internals. Another crypto heist made the headlines. Threat actor stole nearly $200 million worth of cryptocurrency from the bridge Nomad. Nomad Bridge is a cross-chain bridge between Ethereum, Moonbeam, Avalanche, Evmos, and Milk-O-Meda. The project confirmed the incident and is investigating the case after it has notified law enforcement. According to researcher Sanzon from Paradigm, an upgrade made by the Nomad team has introduced a security flaw. It changed the verification process for the messages, allowing attackers to copy-paste transactions and steal the funds from the bridge. Attackers copied the original transaction and replaced the address with their own. The Nomad token bridge appears to have experienced a security exploit that has allowed hackers to systematically drain the bridge's funds over a long series of transactions. The vulnerability was in the initialization process where the committed root is set as 0. Therefore, the attacker was able to bypass the message verification process and drain the tokens from the bridge contract. Due to this flawed upgrade, users could exploit bridge funds by copying the original hacker's transaction call data and replacing the original address with a personal one, reads the analysis published by blockchain security firm Certic. The transaction then processed and successfully removed funds from the bridge. According to Certic, other hackers and bots and community members replicated the initial attack in 4 hours, draining the funds from the bridge. The Twitter user Fubar pointed out that the issue allegedly involved in the cyber heist was discovered along with tens of other issues during an audit conducted this year by blockchain firm QuantStamp. However, Nomad believes that the attack was not coordinated by a single attacker. Instead, many white hat hackers or security researchers may have transferred tokens into their own addresses to protect the funds. It confirmed the white hat hackers will likely return the funds. For this reason, Nomad has provided a wallet address where they can be returned. According to Certic, since the beginning of the year, 5 cross-chain bridge attacks have led to a loss of $1,317 million, amounting to 57% of the total losses in Web3 in 2022. The Nomad Bridge exploit ranks as the 3rd largest attack this year, behind the Ronin Bridge of $624 million and Wormhole Bridge of $326 million exploits. During a recent investigation, Sentinel-1 researchers observed threat actors associated with the Lockbit 3.0 ransomware as a service operation abusing the Windows Defender command line tool MP command run.exe to decrypt and load Cobalt Strike payloads. The attackers initially compromised the target networks by exploiting the Log4j vulnerability affecting an unpatched VMware Horizon server. The attackers modified the Blast Secure Gateway component of the application by installing a web shell using PowerShell code that is detailed in the original article. Once a foothold is gained into the target system, the attackers performed a series of enumeration commands and attempted to run multiple post-exploitation tools, including Meterpreter, PowerShell Empire, and used a new technique to sideload Cobalt Strike. In particular, when attempting to execute Cobalt Strike, we observed a new legitimate tool used for sideloading a malicious DLL that decrypts the payload, reads the analysis published by SentinelOne. Previously observed techniques to evade defenses by removing EDR and EPP's userland hooks, event tracing for Windows, and anti-malware scan interface were also observed. SentinelOne highlights the importance of sharing information on the exploitation of novel living off the land tools to drop Cobalt Strike beacons and evade detection of common security solutions. MP Command Run.exe is a command line tool for carrying out various functions in Microsoft Defender antivirus, including scanning for malicious software, collecting diagnostic data, and restoring the service to a previous version, among others. Importantly, tools that should receive careful scrutiny are any that either the organization or the organization's security software have made exceptions for. Products like VMware and Windows Defender have a high prevalence in the enterprise and a high utility to threat actors if they are allowed to operate outside of the installed security controls, concludes the analysis. Gootkit runs on an access-as-a-service model. It is used by different groups to drop additional malicious payloads on the compromised systems. Gootkit has been known to use fileless techniques to deliver threats such as Suncrypt and REvil, or Sonokibi ransomware, Kronos Trojans, and Cobalt Strike. In the past, Gootkit distributed malware masquerading as freeware installers. Now it uses legal documents to trick users into downloading these files. The attack chain starts with a user searching for specific information in a search engine. Attackers use black SEO technique to display a website compromised by Gootkit operators among the results. Upon visiting the website, the victim will notice that it is presented as an online forum directly answering his query. This forum hosted a zip archive that contains the malicious JS file, which is used to establish persistence and drop a Cobalt Strike binary in the memory of the infected system. When the user downloaded and opened this file, it spawned an obfuscated script which, through registry stuffing, installed a chunk of encrypted codes in the registry and added scheduled tasks for persistence. The encrypted code in the registry was then reflectively loaded through PowerShell to reconstruct a Cobalt Strike binary that runs directly in the memory filelessly, reads the analysis published by Trend Micro. Much of what we have just described is still in line with the behavior of what we reported in 2020, but with a few minor updates. This indicates that Gootkit Loader is still actively being developed and has proved successful in compromising unsuspecting victims. Experts pointed out that encrypted registries now use custom text replacement algorithms instead of base64 encoding. The Cobalt Strike binary loaded directly to the memory of the victim system has been observed connecting to the IP address 89. Blah blah blah, which is a Cobalt Strike command and control server. At the end of July, Microsoft Threat Intelligence Center and Microsoft Security Response Center researchers linked a threat group known as Knotweed to an Austrian surveillance firm named DSIRF, known for using multiple Windows and Adobe Zero-Day exploits. The group targets entities in Europe and Central America with a surveillance tool dubbed Sub-Zero. Microsoft states that multiple news reports have linked the company to the Sub-Zero malware toolset used to hack a broad range of devices, phones, computers, and network and internet-connected devices. The researchers found evidence that links DSIRF to the Knotweed's operation, including the command and control infrastructure used by Sub-Zero and code signing certificate issued by DSIRF that is used to sign an exploit. Microsoft reported Sub-Zero attacks against Microsoft customers in Austria, the United Kingdom, and Panama. The targeted entities are law firms, banks, and strategic consultancies. Last week, Austria announced it is investigating the report that links DSIRF to spyware targeting entities in at least 3 countries. Austria's Interior Ministry said it is not aware of any incidents and has no business relationships with it. Of course, DSN, the National Security and Intelligence Directorate, checks the allegation. So far, there is no proof of the use of spy software from the company mentioned, reads a statement published by Austria's Interior Ministry. Austria's Courier newspaper confirmed that the DSIRF developed the Sub-Zero surveillance software, but added that it had not been misused and was developed exclusively for use by authorities in EU states. The newspaper also added that the spyware was not commercially available. Hey, we now move on to other security news. The Department of Homeland Security warned of a critical security vulnerabilities in emergency alert systems and encoder-decoder devices. Threat actors could exploit the flaws to send fake emergency alerts via TV, radio networks, and cable networks. The emergency alert system is a national public warning system that requires radio and TV broadcasters, cable TV, wireless cable systems, satellite, and wireline operators to provide the president with capability to address the American people within 10 minutes during a national emergency. The alert was issued by the DHS Federal Emergency Management Agency through the Integrated Public Alert and Warning System. The vulnerabilities in EAS encoder-decoder devices were discovered by security researcher Ken Pyle from Cyber. We recently became aware of certain vulnerabilities in EAS encoder-decoder devices that, if not updated to the most recent software versions, could allow an attacker or an actor to issue EAS alerts over the host infrastructure, TV, radio, cable network, reads the advisory. This exploit was successfully demonstrated by Ken Pyle, a security researcher at cyber.com, and may be presented as a proof of concept at the upcoming DEF CON 2022 conference in Las Vegas from August 11th to the 14th. The US DHS did not disclose details about the flaw to prevent active exploitation in the wild. The researcher plans to disclose as a proof of concept for issues of the upcoming DEF CON 2022 conference in Las Vegas on August 11th to August 14th. FEMA recommends EAS participants to ensure that EAS devices and supporting systems are up to date with the most recent software versions and security patches. EAS devices are protected by a firewall. EAS devices and supporting systems are monitored, and audit logs are regularly reviewed looking for unauthorized access. The Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency has added a recently disclosed flaw in the Zimbra email suite, tracked to CVE 2022-27924, to its Known Exploited Vulnerabilities Catalog. In mid-June, researchers from SonarSource discovered CVE 2022-27924 vulnerability. It can be exploited by an unauthenticated attacker to steal login credentials of users without user interaction. Zimbra Collaboration, aka ZCS 8.8.15 and 9.0, allows an unauthenticated attacker to inject arbitrary memcache commands into a targeted instance. These memcache commands become unescaped, causing an overwrite of arbitrary cached entries. Once the login credentials are obtained, attackers can access the victim's mailboxes and potentially escalate their access to targeted organizations. According to Binding Operational Directive BOD 2201, reducing the significant risk of known exploited vulnerabilities, FCEB agencies have to address the identified vulnerabilities by the due date to protect their networks against attacks exploiting the flaws in the catalog. However, as we've seen, for example, with Microsoft disabling specific functionality, sometimes they take that back. Experts recommend also that private organizations review the catalog and address the vulnerabilities in their infrastructure. The researchers published a video proof of concept that demonstrates how an unauthenticated attacker can steal the password of a known user of a targeted instance. The vulnerability is triggered the next time the victim uses a mail client to connect to the Zimbra server of a target organization. Threat actors, which know the victim's email addresses, can override an entity in the cache to forward all IMAP traffic to an attacker-controlled server, including the clear text credentials of a targeted user. Zimbra addressed the issue on May 10, 2022 with the release of versions 8.8.15 P31.1 and 9.0.0 P24.1. CISA orders federal agencies to fix your issue by August 25th, 2022. So the clock is ticking, guys. Tick-tock, tick-tock. When it comes to cybersecurity, everyone likes to talk about software and the dangers that it poses. However, people often overlook hardware-based security and its vital importance in establishing a secure workspace. This is attributed to a general lack of knowledge when it comes to hardware security and how it works. So it's time to bust some myths that you might think are true when it comes to hardware security. Myth number 1, we never hear about hardware-based attacks. They don't exist. And well, just because you don't hear about the problem frequently doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Usually, cyber attacks that make the headlines are those involving large corporations that have fallen victim to a software-based attack carried out by infamous cybercrime syndicates. These stories are juicy and scandalous and entice audience to read the article, generating more clicks onto the media outlet's website. Additionally, many businesses choose to withhold information pertaining to hardware-based attacks as it indicates insufficient physical security, which reflects negatively upon the business. Another reason why you don't often hear about hardware-based attacks is that enterprises who fall victim to them are oblivious to it. Myth number 2, we have security measures in place and all our employees use VPNs. We're protected. Yeah, your security measures like NAC, IDS, IDP, firewalls, and VPNs definitely provide some level of protection. However, malicious actors are continually evolving and finding new attack methods, which means exploiting blind spots, one of which is the hardware domain. Existing security solutions lack visibility into the physical layer, layer 1, leaving them unfit to defend against, let alone identify hardware-based attack tools. These malicious devices are designed to evade detection by operating on the physical layer and mimic human-like commands and executions, making them extremely dangerous as they can carry out a variety of harmful attacks without any obstacles in their way. If you're unable to determine all your assets' hardware information within 10 seconds, you are, in fact, not protected. Myth number 3, we don't use USBs, so why should it concern us? Your organization might not use flash drives, and there might be some authorization capabilities in EPS and EDR solutions that block phones, keyboards, and mice with certain VID, PIDs. That's great, but what about keyboards employees use to type, and the mice they use to navigate? Correct, those are USBs. They might be authorized, but that doesn't mean they can't get impersonated by a covert spoofing device, like a tiny USB plug that gets plugged in before the keyboard or your mouse does. So long as there are HIDs in the network environment, there is the risk that one or more may be illegitimate. And without physical layer visibility, there's no mechanism in place to determine what's legitimate or not. Myth number 4, what would anyone want to hack us for? We aren't an interesting target. In today's day and age, almost anything that has data is of value, and there is someone out there who wants to access it, no matter how mundane it could be. Not all hackers target large nuclear facilities or government institutions. The risk is usually too high for most cyber criminals. Your company, however, is a prime target. There's data and it's accessible. Whether the perpetrator wants to steal information for monetary gain, access to gain a competitive advantage, or encrypt it in a ransomware attack, your company provides the opportunity, and a hardware attack tool can do the job. The 24-year-old Australian national Jacob Wayne John Keane has been charged for his alleged role in the development and sale of spyware known as Imminent Monitor. The Australian Federal Police launched an investigation into the case, codenamed Cepheus, in 2017 after it received information about a suspicious rat from cybersecurity firm Palo Alto Networks on the US FBI and the US FBI. The man created the malicious code, a remote access Trojan, when he was 15 years old and maintained its infrastructure from 2013 to 2019. In November 2019, Europol announced to have dismantled the global organized cybercrime ring behind the Imminent Monitor rat. The Imminent Monitor rat is a hacking tool that allows threat actors to remotely control the victim's computers. The malware can be delivered in multiple ways, including emails and text messages, and could be used to carry out various malicious actions. The international operation conducted by law enforcement agencies targeted both the sellers and users of the Imminent Monitor rat remote access Trojan. According to the authorities, the popular hacking tool was used across 124 countries, where it was bought by more than 14,500 hackers. That now, after the operation, will no longer be able to use it. Imminent Monitor rat was very popular because it is easy to use and it was very cheap. It was offered for a little $25 with lifetime access. According to the Australian police, the rat cost about $35 Australian, and it was allegedly advertised on a cybercrime forum. The authorities believe the man earned between $300,000 and $400,000 from selling the malware. Law enforcement speculates hackers using the hacking tool to steal personal details, passwords, private photographs, video footage, and data from tens of thousands of victims. An Australian man, 24, who sparked a global law enforcement operation for allegedly creating and selling spyware purchased by domestic violence perpetrators and other criminals, has been charged by the AFP, reads a press release published by the Australian Federal Police. It will be alleged the Frankston man engaged with a network of individuals and sold the spyware named Imminent Monitor to more than 14,500 individuals across 128 countries. The investigation conducted by the AFP identified 201 individuals in Australia who bought the rat, according to the Australian authorities. 14.2% of the Australian-based PayPal purchases of IM-RAT are associated with people named as respondents on domestic violence orders. Additionally, one of these purchasers is also registered on the Child Sex Offender Register. The authorities also accused the mother of the man who was served a summons to face one count of dealing with the proceeds of crime. And hey, that's the news. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe if you haven't already, and smash the bell if you haven't already. And I'll see you on the next episode. Take care.
Don't forget to ride.